so good to have you here. Mm. Oh, this road we travel.
Oh, dear.
This has been, oh my gosh.
God says, hold my beer.
You do it so well.
What next, God? Watch me.
Oh my gosh, all week, Leah would just sit in her room and cry and say, this happy home. She just kept saying, this happy home we've created. And I looked at her with all the yelling and all the screaming that comes through her. Her idea was a happy home and that it was all lost. And just,
Calls this change on steroids.
we may have just been on Facebook.
Okay.
Thank you, God. Hey, I wasn't in the bathroom. I'm glad. we gotta love.
Pardon me? Capital of Liberia?
Is it really?
Monrovia.
Blah, blah, blah.
Sounded good to me.
I know. Well, I make a lot of stuff up.
Oh, I gotta keep this.
I don't.
We love you. Good morning. Good morning, spiritual family. As we gather here at Unity Spiritual Center of Portland with all of the background noise, all of life, all of the pieces that it puts together, I just welcome you. What we're doing here, and I'm Reverend Lisa Davis here at Unity Spiritual Center of Portland, what we're doing is gathering and creating the essence of remembering in our being. We're creating this spiritual circle, this gathering of consciousness and a remembering again and again and again of the truth of who and what we are. I want to share with you a few things that are happening here so that we can move through these. I'll do them again at the end of the service, but just to let you know, we're not planning on doing prayer flags this week. We'll keep you posted on what happens with that as we move through different aspects of air quality and different pieces like that. We're still doing our spruce up outs. Well, actually, I don't know that they are, but I'm so grateful for all of those who do. As of today, one of the adventures we're moving into is inviting 10 people each week to our indoor service. If you'd like to make a reservation, please do. Our indoor service will be at 10 a.m. Contact Diana at unityofportland.org. And for at least 3 weeks, our plan, now we'll see what God's plans are, but our plan is for the next 3 weeks, so September 20th, 27th, and October 4th at 11 a.m., we're going to do a second service after the live stream in our parking lot. It'll be an outdoor one with, we invite you to bring your chairs, come on in, stay socially distanced. It's open to 40 people a week. Call and make a reservation if you'd like to be a part. Again, you can call the church or Diana at unityofportland.org. Wear a mask, stay socially distanced, and bring a chair. We also will be beginning, and we're going to start signing up for a 3-week conversation. I'm calling it White Allies, and I am challenging all of you who are white in this community to join me for 3 weeks. That you can do it Monday mornings at 11 a.m. or Monday evenings at 7 p.m. for a conversation to prepare ourselves and to just have a conversation about who we are and what role we play and a deeper understanding in the journey of dismantling racism. So that'll start September 27th. It'll go October 5th and the 12th. There's no charge, but please sign up again at Diana at unityofportland.org. And from there, we will move into a 7-week. And again, this is a choice, but it is a session where we meet with our Black leaders and we gather their lived experience in this living while Black in this country, who and what, and the support and the sources and the things that go on in their journey. And we'll also go deeper in the ideas of what it takes to dismantle racism. What's at the true core of this? Gathering wisdom from these brilliant beings that I have had such honor in meeting with and working with these ideas. And so I invite you to begin that preparation by saying yes to looking at the White Allies as we move this community into an active, aware, awake community in dismantling racism. I want to thank you for your continued support. We appreciate your generosity and your giving. You can always text Unity of Portland to 77977. You can go on our website to give. It's all a part of holding this space that this message is such an important one. So thank you, thank you. We welcome Reverend Sidney with us today, and Charlie, we're so grateful to have both of you with us. I can't tell you what it does to my heart. And as we get ready for a time, our opening prayer and our meditation together, as we get ready for that, I just invite you to remember that who you are is infinite life. You are a creation of spirit. And we move into this remembering together as we take this journey of spirit.
Be still now, be still now, be still now, and know that I am
for every person who's been affected by these fires throughout the Northwest, throughout the whole West Coast, throughout our country, our world, the pandemic. We continue gathering in. Be still now and know that I am God. This is the infinite call of the universe, inviting us to anchor as we center ourselves. Be still and know that I am God. With every breath, I know I still my being, and I know I am that I am within me, vibrates as love, vibrates as understanding. I open to a larger understanding of the sacred journey that I walk. In the silence, I am that I am in the silence. If you haven't been breathing in fully, I invite you to take in the full breath of the infinite again and again, to breathe in fully. This universe reminds us to be still and know that I am God, the infinite presence, the infinite power. Be still and know that I am God. And so it is.
Be still now. Be still now. Be still now and know that I am God. Be still now. Be still, still now. Be still now and know that I am God. After the fire is over, after the ashes cool, after the smoke has blown away, I will be here for you. After the stillness finds you, after the winds of change, all that is good and true between us, this will remain the same. Slowly growing, knowing it comes at quite a price after the fire is over, after the ashes cool, after the smoke has blown away, I will be here for you. After your time of wandering, after your lonely road, there will be many voices calling, and mine will say, welcome home. Slowly, slowly we turn the page of life, growing and knowing it comes at quite a price after the fire is over, after the ashes cool, after the smoke has blown away, I will be here for you. I will be here for you. I will be here for you.
Wow. I don't exactly know, Reverend Sydney, and how you find a song that has to do with after the fire is over, but thank you. Thank you. We are so blessed to be here today to be along this journey. We do have some families in this community who are currently evacuated, affected by the fire, on evacuation orders. And for all of you, we want you to know that we are here for you, for this planet that is opening to a new idea. We get to open our hearts to that. And for each being, holding them where they are in this journey. I have to tell you, my belief right now is that this is a time for touching. And you might say, what? We're on a pandemic. I'm talking about touching our hearts, touching the world with our blessings, with our understanding, with our hearts. It's a time of touching the truth that the infinite intelligence of the universe moves through us, this intelligence in which we live and move and have our being. It's time to touch our lives softly. We might have been barreling through or trying to get from day to day to touch the lives around us softly. Yesterday, which I was just putting the finishing touches on my message. I usually get up Saturday mornings. I take my daughter, my oldest daughter, to a farm where she can spend the weekend and get the love and the attention and her time with animals that she can. And I came back and I sat down. I thought, thank you, God. I'm just going to look at this and then bless it and let it go. And it was gone. That hasn't happened to me in years and years and years. I thought, what did I do? What's happening? What? And I got to go to the place of, do I breathe in quiet and trust that it's there? Or do I panic, which would be really easy to do? We've spent the week in evacuation, mode 1, get ready, and explaining to people what that is and what that means. And so I just got to breathe and begin the journey again and again that I believe all of us are on. The universe is saying, let me help you open. And I just got to do what I've been doing, soften my heart, find peace, and touch the sacred. And I want to show you, I had said, okay, I need quiet. And quiet wasn't exactly happening in my house. Instead, I had another teenager who wanted attention. And finally, I just thought, I can't fight this. And I want to show you a picture. And I realize, James Eric, I don't know how to put it up here, but it is a picture of, well, it's on the screen, of my daughter Lauren asleep on the bed in front of me with a little cat under her blanket and the head sticking out. And when I looked for the sacred, I looked up and I thought, sometimes I look too far. Now, there had been uproars as we all go into our fight or flight or freeze. But what there is the sacred. And I just invite you right now, if you haven't been finding it in your life, you may be all alone at home. There is sacred. You're going to find it. It doesn't show up how we want it to. It doesn't come in the package that we always say, this is what we need. But there is no place that God is not. There is no place in our lives when we begin to look for the sacred, when we begin to soften our hearts, we will find it. Rumi says, love is the bridge between you and everything. Love is the bridge between you and everything. So when we work to find that love, to find that place that we're going, the first thing we've got to do is soften our hearts. Now, a lot of times when we're going through something, we put all of our armor on and we start going. Anybody done that recently? We're living that sometimes. But the actual practice, and I'm using Pema Chodron, and I could not find the book of hers I wanted, which is called When Things Fall Apart. But instead, what was nicely on my shelf was Practicing Peace in Times of War. And I thought, oh, what does that have to do with anything? And then, of course, I looked at the fires and all of the pieces, and this was a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, now I understand. But I want to share with you what she said. She said, war and peace start in the hearts of individuals. Strangely enough, even though all beings would like to live in peace, our method for obtaining peace over the generations seems not to be very effective. We seek peace and happiness by going to war. And I thought, well, that's them out there making the decisions. But how many of us in our own lives, how many of us seek peace and happiness by going to war? She goes on to say, war begins when we harden our hearts, and we harden them pretty easily. In minor ways, and then in quite serious major ways, such as hatred and prejudice. Whenever we feel uncomfortable or scared, we start to close down. And today, my invitation to every one of us is to begin the journey of softening our hearts. Pema goes on to say, it's so sad really, because our motivation in hardening our hearts is to find some kind of ease, some kind of freedom from the distress that we're feeling. This is what I have found to be the best definition of peace, and this is Pema Chodron. Peace is softening what is rigid in our hearts. I just want you to breathe that in. Peace is softening what is rigid in our hearts. We can talk about ending war. We can do everything in our power, but war is never going to end as long as our hearts are hardened against ourselves and each other. We've learned to do it against ourselves. We've learned to do it against businesses and people and family and all of it. And what happens is a chain reaction. Something happens, and she says it can be as small as a mosquito buzzing. And we tighten, and then we tighten again. And then we build a story about it. Something happens, and then something starts to shut down in us. And the next thing we know, the chain reaction, and she calls it the chain reaction of misery, begins. We begin to fan the grievance with our thoughts, our stories. These things become fuel that ignites a war in our hearts. Right now, there's fires all around us, and we can start softening to learning, to saying, wow, what's the invitation here? We might be able to point out who's wrong and who's not doing what they're supposed to. And I know there's a movement of truth that goes forward, but I want to invite us to soften our hearts. And she said, we often complain about other people's fundamentalism, but whenever we harden our hearts, what do we think is going on in us? And this one hits really hard, because sometimes I know that I go into fight, flight, or freeze. I know my teenagers do. And when we're all stuck in a house, it's not always a pretty sight. Or then we just go into our families, or we go into where we work, or we go into the larger world, or we just turn on the news, and we begin that process. And she said there's an uneasiness, and then a tightening, a shutting down, and then the next thing we know, the chain reaction begins, and we become very righteous about our right to kill the mosquito, or yell at the person who bothers us, or whatever it might be. We ourselves become fundamentalists, which is to say we become very self-righteous about our personal point of view. So today, as we gather in a consciousness of the pure potentiality of spirit and the realization that everything that happens on this planet is working together for good. It is supporting us in an opening. We can begin to soften our hearts. She says a fundamentalist mind is a mind that has become rigid. First the heart closes, then the mind becomes hardened into a view. Then you can justify your hatred of another human being because of what they represent and what they say and do. There will never be peace until we soften what is rigid in our hearts, no matter what is happening around us. The invitation of the universe right now is to soften our hearts. Sometimes we have to do that by becoming really friendly with our wounds, with the places that trigger us, with the things that are happening. They begin to shut us down. But the truth is, we have the power of spirit within us. We are more than that which happens around us. It's been very interesting this week as everything's turned yellow and we've looked around us. For me, the experience was going back into times years ago when I was very ill. And before I had a seizure, everything would turn this yellowish, interesting color. And at first, I started just hardening and just feeling fear and wondering what was happening. And then, of course, we're on an evacuation notice, just level 1, but explaining to a beautiful being who didn't understand what that meant in my family and supporting, and all these pieces, they begin to tighten us. And so I have to breathe, and I have to say, peace, be still. We get to know that the truth is we have within us everything we need. You've heard it, but there comes a point where we get to grab it and pull it into our wounded places and just stand there with it. We might eat a little extra. We might laugh at ourselves. We might cry at ourselves. We might get upset. And then we pull the pieces back in and we go back and we soften. I'd like to do it before the argument over who spilled what on the floor and why it's 2 days later. But that's not the reality. The reality is it's never too late to soften our hearts. Those wounds of 20 and 30 years ago can be healed in our hearts. We have all that we need. And the first step is always allowing ourselves to recognize that we have the power of spirit within us. Paramahansa Yogananda said, to be calmly active and actively calm, a person of peace, sitting on the throne of poise, directing the kingdom of activity, is to be spiritually healthy. Now, there were times this week I'm like, I can't find the kingdom, this throne of poise. It went away. And instead, we get to go back to going inside of ourselves, to saying, wait a minute. If I've got a heart, and if you're breathing, you do. If you're living, you do. Then I've got all that I need. Because the truth is, the breath, the heart, the remembering that within me is the infinite presence of Spirit. And I can say, peace, be still. To that heart, to those thoughts, to the things that are happening. Our egos say, let me get through this. Don't you remember it was a pandemic? And then it was these fires. Let me get through this and then I'll be calm. But the truth is, the Spirit, our hearts, say, my peace is in my heart. It's in my breath. It's in me. It's always within me. And everything is in perfect order. That which I understand and don't understand. And that truth is coded cellularly in your being. I'm going to go back to this from Hafiz again. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you living in better conditions. Wherever you are this day, the better conditions are our hearts. They're what guide us. They're what takes us. And we can anchor ourselves through prayer. Now, for me, I thought it was interesting that I went back to the prayer of my childhood. You've heard it from me over and over again. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. Often I go to a longer prayer, the prayer of faith, but this time, that's right where I've stayed. James Philip Freeman wrote that for the soldiers in World War II. He wrote it to be taken. Of course, it's been taken to the moon. It's on the moon. It's been taken around the world. But it's a remembering. Now, this is an infinite quantum field, this light of God. But do we have it? I often laugh, and you've heard me talk about my nephew at 7 years old when he was on, what was that called? Splash Mountain. And I heard him at the top of it. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. As he came down, you could hear it the whole time. I heard the whole prayer, every word of it, as I was standing there watching him. My desire is that every one of us has that anchor in our lives. I don't care if you're 5 or you're 85 or 95. What's your anchor that reminds you the truth of your being? The light of God surrounds you. That's a quantum known. It is the field. And it is pure potentiality. And it lives and moves and has its being within you. You are an idea in the mind of God, of this field, expressing. The love of God does enfold you. It has no choice, and it is within you. It sources you. It breathes as you. The power of God always protects you. I don't know what each of our journeys is this day. And you can say, yes, but a house burnt, or this burnt, or that burnt. I don't always know why we go through what we do. But I know that the power, the presence, the love, the very energy of God, of Spirit, will take us anywhere we need to go. And it doesn't take us there, and that's all. It takes us through. Always. It's always with us. It moves us. It is there. And it sources us to do all that is ours to do. Now, I grew up hearing the word peace be still. It was a common one in my family. I didn't understand it. My mother used it quite frequently. And I realized she was saying that to the energy that 4 teenagers brought into the house. And she was saying, peace, be still. By the time I was a licensed teacher and doing my first teaching, and I was so afraid, And I actually had laryngitis, and my stomach was upset. And we were at a women's retreat. It was the first time I really was talking. And it was on Maui, and she had rented Robert Schuler's summer home. And so I thought, well, I'll go. And she goes, you can go, but you got to talk. And of course, I didn't talk to groups. I just didn't do it. I didn't need to. And I said, what am I going to do? And she said, well, I've found that anytime my body isn't listening to what my spirit wants to do, I say, peace, be still. And it does anything I need it to do from my center. And I have used that in ministry. I had a voice. I had everything I needed. And I have used it over and over and over again. And I want to do a metaphysical interpretation from the Bible. In Unity, we look at the Bible as a wisdom text, one of many on this, or one of quite a few. And that we look at the stories metaphysically, spiritually. And this time of Jesus calming the waters was something that we have the ability to do in our lives. I use this little book, very, very old, by Elizabeth Sand Turner, Your Hope of Glory, and she went through quite a few of these stories. And in this, Jesus is teaching. Now, Jesus represents the divine in us, that enlightened part that can say, oh, I'm one with the presence. This is who I am. So the Christ divine essence of you. And every story in this, every person, every place, everything in that story is a part of your journey. So it's an archetype that teaches you. Jesus had been teaching. So the divine spirit had been teaching. And all the parables, actually. The parable of the net, of the householder, of the mustard seed, teaching and teaching. And then he said, I'm done here. And that was actually the last teaching he did with the people, the Judaic people. And he went out and shared it with a larger world. He went into the Greek cities. But he said, let's get in this boat and we're going to cross the Sea of Galilee. Now he got into the boat with his disciples. So if you think about it, you have a Christ center, a divine center, and you have all of these powers, you have wisdom, you have strength, you have faith, you have love, you have imagination, you have understanding, you have the ability to release things, you have strength, you have all of these pieces. And they all got in a boat and started to cross the Sea of Galilee. And Galilee represents rolling energy in Hebrew. And it means it's movement to higher ground. But we get to cross it. And the Christ went to sleep. Anybody's divine essence gone to sleep during a few fires or smoke or pressure from not having jobs or a pandemic or what our bodies are doing? The Christ goes to sleep while crossing into this new awakened idea, into a larger understanding of this truth. And finally, his disciples wake him up. They're like, the water's coming in. And the disciples wake up Jesus and say, aren't you going to do something? And he stands up and says, peace, be still. And that Christ in you has the ability at any time in your life to say, peace, be still. To the places where we're rigid, to the anger that comes up. It doesn't mean there's not work to do. It doesn't mean it's not ours to do. It means that we can say, peace, be still. And for a lifetime, we have that ability. We can hold that vibrant presence and power within us. And at any time, we can talk to our bodies, our minds, the fear, the places where we find fear ruling us. We just say, peace, be still. And we take the next step in courage. So we soften our hearts. We remember the love that we are, the truth that we are. We choose dominion, which is the power and the presence of the quantum field within us. We choose to say, peace, be still. And then we move through the rolling energy. It's got wisdom in it. It's got all that it needs in it. We wake up the divine essence and the divine knowing of our soul, of our core. And then we cross that sea into a whole new world, a whole new life, a whole new way of understanding and being. And we take that next step with courage. Socrates said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. And I've had to repeat that several times. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Sharon Mitchell posted this on her Facebook page. So I have to tell you, the 6 types of courage came from a Facebook post. And I loved it because I had a little book that's called Courage. It's just a little pamphlet, not a pamphlet, it's about 30 pages that's on courage. And I kept thinking, how do I condense this? And then I saw this, I was like, this is what I need. There's 6 types. Physical courage, to keep going with resiliency, balance, and awareness. Social courage, to be yourself unapologetically. Moral courage, doing the right thing even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular. Emotional courage, feeling all your emotions, positive and negative, without guilt or attachment. Intellectual courage, to learn, unlearn, and relearn with an open and flexible mind. And spiritual courage, living with purpose and meaning through a heart-centered approach towards all life and oneself. And tomorrow, when you don't choose courage, you just go back. You soften your heart. You say, peace be still. And you say, wait a minute, I've got courage. I've got the courage to take one step. That's all that's required. We take the next step in front of us, and we'll know where the next step is. It's ours. It's there. I got a call yesterday, and I just loved it. I think some of the important pieces is to reach out and to touch the world around us. People we may not have talked to in years. Touch the people you don't know. And I'm talking about with our hearts, with that ability to bless, to see something more. But Norma Shell, a long-term person in this community, she's been with our youth for decades and decades and decades when she's been needed, and she's touched our lives in so many ways. But she said, I just want to tell you something. She said, I called a friend in Ashland who I thought might have lost her home. And I wanted to share with you that for this friend. And I called her and said, how are you? How's the journey? What's happening? And she said, the woman told me that years ago around her house, when she moved in, on the fence, she put the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. And blessed that space. And she said, for some reason, the fire came to my fence and went in a different direction. And she said, my house is there. And I just thought, thank you, God. I know there's many homes that are lost. And I trust that humanity is large enough to support each of those beings. And all of us will learn, we will grow, we will expand, we will find something more than we ever dreamed was there. We will find our humanity. John Lewis, in his Across the Bridge, and yes, I'm still going through it. He said, even as a boy, I knew in my heart and soul that the equality of all humankind was not just a dream. At a young age, I mourned for the experience of a more loving world. My soul insisted there was a better way. And he talked about those who joined the struggle of respect for human dignity, both black and white, Protestant and Jew, that they'd been locked in this cognitive dissonance, this hardening for years. And he said, where'd it go? We believed, and this is about those who stood. in nonviolence. We believed that if we are all children of the same Creator, then discrimination had to be an error, a misconception based on faulty logic. The idea that some people were inherently better was a delusion of the human ego, a distortion of the truth. We asserted our right to human dignity based on a solid faith that our divine heritage that linked us to every other human being and all the rest of creation, known and unknown, even to the heart and mind of God and the highest celestial realms of the universe, that it was real, that it was true, that we are all linked. And so my invitation to each of us this week, as we go throughout our journey, as we take the next step in our day, whether we're surrounded by people or we're all alone in our place, is to touch the world around us, this sacred humanity. Use the art of blessing. Soften your heart. Calm your very center. Say, peace be still to the thoughts and the judgments and all the things that happen. And remember that the truth of all of us is that we are whole, infinite creations of spirit. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. And we are here as love, to love. Thank you.
Where are the dreams that we once had? This is the time to bring them back. What were the promises caught on the tips of our tongues? Do we forget or forgive? There's a whole other life waiting to be lived when one day we're brave enough to talk with conviction of the heart. And down your streets I've walked alone, as if my feet were not my own. Such is the path I chose. Doors I've opened and closed. I'm tired of living this lie and fooling myself, believing we're right when I've never given love with any conviction of the heart. Sky, one with everything in life. I believe we'll survive if we only try. How long must we wait to change this world bound in chains that we live in? To know what it is to forgive and be forgiven. It's been too many years of taking now. Isn't it time to stop somehow? Air that's too angry to breathe. Water our children can't drink. You've heard it hundreds of times. You say you're aware, believe and you care. But do you care enough? Where's your conviction of the heart? One with the earth, with the start with conviction of the heart, with the earth, with the sky, one with everything in life. I believe it will start with conviction of the heart.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It does start with conviction of the heart. It starts, it moves, it lives with the remembering, the conviction of our heart to love ourselves right where we are. Every one of us, all of humanity, we're right where we're supposed to be to learn the next step, to grow through it all. And we can do that together. It's time to share your offering if you haven't already done so. I just invite you to open your heart to remembering we're all a part of that movement of spirit. You can do this through our website at unityofportland.org. You can do it through PushPay by texting 77977 and the word Unity of Portland, all lowercase, and it'll give you options there. You can do it by sending in a check, and we thank you for being a part of this consciousness, of this knowing, of this remembering that cellularly we are humanity, opening our hearts, remembering the innate value, the very innate value of every one of us, and allowing life to move through us. We are so grateful. And I'm going to close with our unity prayer, with this prayer for protection. And I just invite you to remember that this movement of spirit goes with you with every step, every breath along your day. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. And so it is. Thank you. Amen. And please know that we will be going to Coffee and Connection in 5 minutes. I invite you to join us there. And we are so blessed. Thank you, thank you.
One with the earth, with the sky, one with everything in life. I believe it will start with conviction of the heart, with the earth, with the sky, one with everything in life. I believe it will start with conviction of the heart.
Thank you. I am so grateful for everyone.